Hey everybody, welcome back to Cooking with Truett. So on today's video, as you can tell, I got a monster behemoth 24-pound choice full packer brisket, 24 big old pounds. So what I'm gonna do is I just got it out of the package. I'm gonna talk about price in a few minutes, but what the main things I'm gonna be concerned with is getting this massive chunk of fat right here, because this fat will not cook down properly. It's just too much, so that fat's got to go, and I'll trim that off till it's even with the brisket. And then I'm also going to trim some of this excess fat on top on the meat side. I'm going to trim all that off, just taking off as little meat as possible. And then on the top side, on the fat cap side, I'm going to do very, very little trimming, because I want to leave some fat coverage on the flat part of the brisket. So this is the flat, and this is the point. So this is going to be the lean end, and this is going to be the fattier end. So on the lean end, on the top side, I'm going to leave a lot of this fat coverage. I'll probably trim it down a little bit to 1/4 of an inch. And there's a massive hunk right here I'll probably trim off, and I'll probably trim off this little flap right here, this little mohawk right here. But other than that, we'll see y'all in a sec. So as you can see, I'm just working my knife, and you want to make sure you're working with a really sharp knife, because what I'm trying to do is cut out this massive hunk of fat, because it's too much fat. It won't cut down or cook down. It won't render out. So you want to get rid of that, because there's still more fat underneath it. And we want to leave a little, but we don't want to literally leave 3 pounds of fat. So all that is just all fat, and that's not going to cook down. So we're going to throw that to the side, and I'm going to trim this up a little bit more. As you can see, this big old decal piece, this is what I'm trimming down. I'm basically carving that fat out. So we have a little bit of fat coverage. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to trim this outer part of the brisket off. It's kind of oxidized. It's kind of gray looking. It's not that real nice cherry red color, that oxidized meat. So I'm probably going to trim just slightly, trim the outside edges off, and trim some of this excess fat and silver skin on the meat side. So I'll see y'all in a sec. So yeah, I'm working on taking as little meat as possible, but I want that excess flabby fat and the silver skin underneath that off. So it's gonna be chewy. And I'm just gonna keep working on it, have my knife pointed upwards so I don't dig into the meat. So all I'm wanting to do is cut off that excess fat and silver skin. See, it slides right off. And that's all fat, no meat. All right, so as you can see, now I'm on the fat cap side, and over here, it's pretty thick. So what I want to do is I want to trim about half of that off and get it down to about 1/4 of an inch or so. You want to leave a little bit of fat cap there on the lean side, but that's too thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down, and I'm literally going to trim about half of that off to leave a little bit of fat, but not too much. And then right here, this huge chunk right here, whoever butchered this thing, they gouged it, but I'm going to take off on the fattier side of the brisket. You don't want a whole ton of big old thick fat cap right there, so I'm going to trim the majority of that off. And yeah, just keep trimming away. See right there, I'm starting to expose meat, and you know you're good. But you want to get the humongous chunks off, like that right there. That's way too much, so I'm going to take a lot of that off. We'll dig down pretty deep right there. So I'm going to keep trimming on this brisket, trimming this down. and we will be right back. All right, so as you can see, I'm pretty much done with trimming the fat off of the brisket. And I'm not a competition cooker smoker. I'm a at-home backyard chef. So I don't trim it to make it look pretty. I trim it to take off as little as fat as I need to, and then let my family let us enjoy and eat the rest. So I carved out that big, humongous piece of deckle fat that was right here that was bulging out right there. And then I also trimmed off a massive piece right here, just excess fat. And this is the part that separates the flat from the point, because they sit on each other like this, but the grains are running different direction, but the flat and the point sit on each other like this. So another thing you can see that I did is I trimmed the fat cap down on the lean end of the brisket. I trimmed it down a lot. I took it off about like half. So I took off about half, and I left a little bit there for the cooking process. So, and now what I'm gonna do is, the other thing I'm gonna do is right here on this little tip of the brisket, you can see it's basically paper thin. And this part of the lean of the flat point is, or the flat is really, really thick. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna round this off and trim off that little skinny piece, because all that's just gonna do is burn up, and it's not gonna, not gonna be edible. So I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna trim it up. And like I said before, I'm an at-home cook. I'm not a competition smoker, so I don't do this to make it look pretty. I do it to eat and enjoy as much as possible. So now we're pretty thick on the flat, almost the same width from on end to end. So I'm gonna leave it there. I trimmed up as much of the fat as I need to. I trimmed off the outer edges. That gray meat that was on the side is just oxidized, just gray. So what I did was I just sliced all that off, and you can see that awesome marbling in this brisket. It's a choice brisket, so it's not even prime or anything like that. So it's just a regular choice brisket, but the marbling on the fatty side of the brisket is gonna be perfect. So, yep, basically for the trimming, I'm done. I'm gonna season this bad boy up now. All right, now, so all the fat that we've trimmed off the brisket, the excess fat, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take all this fat and we're gonna put it in a big old pot, and we are basically going to slowly cook it down and render it all out and cook it down and make a homemade beef tallow. So that's gonna be like just meat juice you can drink and based on anything. You can cook eggs in it. You can fry your burgers in it. You can cook this down and fry your steaks in it. It's gonna be like meat juice for days. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is, after I've trimmed it, I've got all the fat off it that I want to. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to be doing a long smoke. So what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be getting up in the middle of the night and letting this smoke all the rest of the night and all day long. So what I'm gonna do is, my favorite thing to do is I like to dry brine it. So I basically take coarse kosher salt and I liberally season, and you can do this with a lot of stuff. I like to do this with steaks, pork chops, pork loin. But what I like to do is, because brisket is such a big, heavy piece of meat, give it a good liberal dose of salt, and then basically it's called dry brining. And what that's gonna do is gonna allow, sitting overnight, allow that salt to penetrate deep into the meat, tenderizing the meat, giving it a lot more flavor. So when you go to season it and stick it on the smoker or stick it in the oven or however you're cooking that all the seasoning, all the flavors, not just on the outside. We're gonna get a lot of that flavor from that salt deep on the inside of the meat. So what I'm gonna do is salting it heavy and then stick it in the fridge overnight to let that salt penetrate the meat, flavor the meat, and make it be a lot better tasting brisket. So season the fat side. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip this bad boy over. And as you can tell, underneath the brisket, I have wire racks because I don't want it sitting, because it's gonna release a little bit of moisture. What I don't wanna do is for that salt to release some moisture out of this brisket, and the brisket overnight just be sitting in a puddle of its own juice, just kind of getting soggy. And I also want to dry out, the salt will dry out the exterior of the brisket, helping to get a better bark, better crust, So as I'm smoking it, you get that dark bark on a good smoked piece of meat. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna season, not too heavy, but you don't wanna go too shy either, because it's a big piece of meat so it can handle it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this salt and I'm just gonna season the entire brisket. And then I'm gonna stick it in the fridge for about 12 hours and let it sit overnight. And let the salt do its magic. So I always say fat's flavor, salt is flavor too. So people, season your food. Don't eat bland meat. I can't stand bland food, so season it right and it'll taste right. So I got it seasoned or salted, let it dry brine overnight, and then it'll be ready to smoke tomorrow. Alrighty, now as you can see, the brisket has been in the fridge overnight for almost 12 hours, dry brined. So I salted it pretty good and on both sides and left it in the fridge overnight to dry brine. And you can see salt really has dried out the exterior of the brisket. Got that deep red. The salt has basically penetrated deep into the meat. And now it's time to get this bad boy on the smoker. But first I'm gonna salt it, or season it with pepper and garlic powder. So doing a traditional salt, pepper, garlic, SPG season for the smoker. So as you can tell, we've got the brisket seasoned up. We already salted it overnight, so no need to put salt on it. So now we just finished it with pepper and granulated garlic. And as you can see, got a tip or two for you. When you're seasoning your brisket, make sure you season it, if you can, season it over the sink so there's no cleanup. Because if you season it all over the counter, you'll have to clean up, wipe up everything. And then also a tip to keep your smoker clean. I got the brisket sitting on a cookie sheet, but I got a wire rack underneath the brisket. So you got the cookie sheet, you got a wire rack, and then the brisket on top of that to keep it elevated. So smoke gets underneath it, gets on top of it. And also I do that because all the juices that drip off the brisket during the cook for hours and hours and hours, all that juice is not dripping into your smoker. It's dripping into that pan. So there's virtually no cleanup. So that's just a tip and a trick to help you keep your smoker clean. Or if you don't have a smoker, if you're cooking it in the oven, to keep your oven clean, have the brisket dripping into a cookie sheet or a tray versus just the juice and the grease just dripping all into your smoker, and you have to end up cleaning it. So 2 little tips for you. Let's get this bad boy on the smoker. All right, as you can see, it is 2:30 in the morning, so 2:30 a.m. Got the smoker set to 250. And this 24-pound monster brisket going in the smoker to 2:30 a.m. Right now it's only at 164, so we got a few more degrees to get to 250. But this is going to be a rest of the morning and all day smoke. So wake up. So we got the pellet smoker rocking at 260. Got the competition pellets. And this is where we're looking at 8 hours into the smoke. Woo, woo. 8 hours in. Look at that beauty. It's glistening. A couple more hours and I'm gonna wrap it to tenderize it. And that's 8 hours in. And as you can see, I got the brisket on top of wire racks on a cookie sheet. So all the juice drips into the pan, keeping my smoker clean. Just a tip, a good one. All right, so we're at the next stage for this brisket. We are sitting at 171 degrees internal temp. So we are past the stall, and now I'm going to take it off the smoker, put it in the oven in a foil pan, and wrap it with aluminum foil to braise it, to tenderize that sucker, and then off to the next step. All right, everybody, so thanks for joining us. So it's been a long 10-hour cook. So now the brisket's probing at 170 degrees internal temp. So now I'm gonna take it off the cookie sheet, and we got it off the smoker. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it in this massive aluminum pan. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw in a little bit of water and beef broth just to help it baste, and also to tenderize, because after you smoke it to, say the stall is 170 degrees, that's where it just stops. It'll sit there for hours and hours and hours. Take it off the smoker, you wrap it, it'll speed up the cooking process, but also wrapping it in aluminum foil will actually break down those fibers and will actually tenderize it. So we're at 170 degrees. I'm gonna put a little bit of water to keep it moist. And as you can see, we got a nice bark on this bark, and it's looking good. So a little bit of water, and pour a little bit of beef broth just to keep it moist. And that'll just add to the flavor, and that brisket will sit there and just baste in its own juices and that water and beef broth and tenderize. And we're gonna wrap it in aluminum foil. We're gonna stick it in the oven. Probably gonna take about 2 hours, give or take. But what I wanna do is I wanna finish this brisket around 204 degrees internal temp, but I'll really know it's done when I'll start probing it to see how tender it is. So we're really not going off of time. We're going strictly by temperature. So I'm gonna wrap it up and throw it in the oven. All right, so everybody, welcome back to Cooking with Truett. So we got a birthday surprise for Gopal. So everybody tell Gopal happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Gopal.
He's 21 years old. He's legal to drink.
No, he's 65 years old.
65. All right, so this is the biggest brisket I've ever cooked, 24 pounds. And it was a 10-hour smoke and a 3-hour braise. So it was a total of 13-hour cook. So we're going to start slicing into it. The grains are in this direction. So I'm going to slice this direction. Ooh, butter. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. It's like meat jello, baby. And literally falling apart. And this is the lean into the brisket where the flat is. Go for it. Ooh. Ah. I mean, it is fall. I mean, it's literally.
Look at that ring.
Tender. Look, just one knife stroke, just boom. That is awesome. So we'll do the bend test. It flops, but it stays together. It'll pull apart test. Boom, nothing to it. Boom, nothing to it. So let's give GoPaw the first bite. So
Ooh.
happy birthday.
Thank you.
You want more? You can eat that.
All right, so we're about to chow down for dinner. This is Cooking with Truett. Got my knife that the in-laws bought me, actually. Happy birthday to me. Anyway, all right, see y'all. All right, everybody. So that was an awesome cook. It was a long cook. It was a total of 13 hours. It was a 10-hour smoke, and then we braised it for 3 hours and really, really tendered that thing up. So wanted to talk about price really quick. So I bought that brisket after tax. It was $76. So what that equals out to with a family of four for 4 meals, that only equals $19 per meal. So $76 divided by 4 meals at bare minimum, because we still got a couple more meals to go. It was only $19 per meal. So I didn't feed just my family of 4. I actually fed a family of 6 twice. So 2 families of 6, and then two meals with 4 people. So that's $19 to feed an entire family, and that was good eating. So Kaylee, what did you think about the brisket?
It's good.
Did you like it? How good was it on one scale from 1 to 10?
10.
10. What part of the brisket do you like? What part of the brisket do you like?
The meat.
No, what side? Do you like the fattier side or the lean side?
Lean.
What is the lean side called?
Flat.
You like the flat? See, I like the point. I like the fatty parts, but you like the lean parts, right? All right. We'll tell everybody, say thanks for joining Cooking with Truett.
Thank you.
Say peace out, people.
Thank you. I'm sorry I got a sore throat.
It's okay. Say bye, everybody.
Bye.
Say the brisket was good, though.
The brisket was good though.
Say peace.